Well, fresh off of an 87.4% approval rating from the conservative base, opposition leader Pierre Poilievre is sitting down with Mark Carney, trying to push forward some conservative ideas and principles. Now, we do know that the Liberals weren't shy of stealing conservative ideas during the campaign. So is Mark Carney listening? Hello, everyone. I'm Adrienne. With me are Warren Kinsella and Lorrie Goldstein. I want to kind of do a sort of around the world in 30 seconds and in the political sphere, Warren. But interesting that we saw Poilievre and Carney both tweet out just the other day that the two men have sat down. They've had conversations. They're both using similar language. It's time for us to work together. And as I mentioned, Carney's not shy about taking conservative ideas and running them with them as his own.
Yeah, he should be charged with grand theft policy, but he's gotten away with it. And I'm going to sound like Pollyanna here, guys, but each leader had their own photograph of that meeting. They sat there. We should show it, with a table between them. But it sounds corny, but I thought it was great. You compare what's happening in the United States to what's happening here, where the two main leaders are getting together to talk, obviously, about ideas and what's coming. The thing that's ominous about the photo is Carney would not be doing that, and Poilievre would not be agreeing if something bad was not really heading our way. I think economically, we've seen the signs of it for some time. We had Bloomberg yesterday indicating that we are in a recession and the bottom is going to fall out of our economy. There's some dispute about that. Other economists don't agree with that. But obviously, we're on the precipice of potentially very bad things economically. So I presume that's why the Prime Minister extended the outreach to the Leader of the Opposition. And it's good because, in the other big democracy to our south, that sort of thing is not happening.
I actually think, Lorrie, if you were to be cynical about the politics of it, I think it's a better move for Poilievre to have that out there. And one of the knocks against him is that he's just there to complain and doesn't actually put forward any policy. I mean, people tend to forget what His Majesty's Loyal Opposition's rule is, but just in the body politic of how the Canadian electorate is looking at things, I think it looks good for Poilievre to be seen in that sort of prime ministerial role in a way.
I think this is one of those rare occasions where good politics is also good policy. I think, look, the voters have said that right now they're not happy with the cost of living. They're not happy with affordability. But we want Prime Minister Mark Carney to lead us on the most important file, which is trade with the United States. And so I think just accept that for now. Like the government, now there's also this idea that Carney may want to call snap election because his polls are so good, blah, blah, blah. I don't think Canadians want any of that. They want this government to do its job, to do the things it said it could do, which is to emerge from these trade talks, which are now on this year, with a deal we can live with. Probably not the deal we used to have, not as good as the deal we used to have, but a deal. And so I don't think they want, what you say is very important. The role of the opposition is to oppose, but you can oppose in different ways. And if you're meeting with the Prime, and I hope it keeps going. I mean, we've seen these things blow apart before, but I hope it keeps going, that the perspective of the official opposition, and I'd feel the same way if the parties were reversed. Yes, critically and responsibly criticize government policies. Offer your own alternatives. And in cases where the government isn't doing as much as you want on issues like tax rebates or making life more affordable, okay, it's not what you want, but don't obstruct getting half a loaf. And I think that's the mood Canadians are in. And I think collectively, we also have challenges in Alberta and Quebec with separatist movements. They're certainly not the majority of people in either. But I think Canadians are also concerned about that. They want this country to be united.
Warren, we never seem to have the need to talk about the NDP in all of this, because not only are they leaderless, but they now have this bizarre leadership race going on that's getting little to no attention unless Avi Lewis says something pretty much insane. That's the only reason it gets any attention. But are you observing anything that's going on with the NDP, or are we just sort of accepting that they are being relegated to the bowels of history?
The NDP always reminds me of poetry of Ezra Pound, who talked about the unkillable, and the NDP is unkillable as much as they came to perishing, leaving this mortal coil in last April's election. They are still here. I've known Avi Lewis for 20 years. I don't agree with him on anything, but he is an engaging guy. He is telegenic. He's got an ability, he's got a soundbite capacity that rivals any successful political leader. He is going to increase their popularity. Carney has, as you pointed out a minute ago, stolen ideas from the Conservative side. I mean, this morning he's announced he's getting rid of a lot of the Trudeau-era electric vehicle mandates. So essentially forcing car dealers to sell electric vehicles. That's gone. He's keeping a rebate, I think of about $5,000 for electric vehicles. So he's not totally walking away from the space. But that creates a lot of room for the NDP, where they can say, he doesn't care about the economy. He is friendly with Donald Trump. He's not protecting our healthcare system. Separatism, as Lorrie's pointed out, is back because the NDP has become the voice of federalism in Alberta. So I think there is some real estate being created in recent weeks and months for the NDP, and somebody who's shrewd and smart, like Avi Lewis is, growing up in the political family that he grew up in, I think he's going to take advantage of that. So that creates a potential challenge for the Prime Minister. I know that Conservatives like to say, it's easy for you guys. We always have the People's Party off to the right, or the Reform Party chipping away at our base. Well, the NDP chips away at the base of the Liberal Party of Canada too. There's a squeeze that happens there, and most dramatically in the year when Jack Layton became the leader of the opposition, and the Liberal Party under Michael Ignatieff was reduced to a rump. So I don't think Liberals are smart by just dismissing the NDP threat, and we're going to start to see that playing out in places like Scarborough Southwest, where Bill Blair finally, blessedly left for his golden landing in Britain, and now there's going to be a former New Democrat running as the Liberal candidate there. So I think Carney is alive to the threat that he faces on the left. He can't move too far to the right because that creates opportunity for somebody like Avi Lewis.
Well, Lorrie, in the case of Bill Blair, I've never seen anybody fail upwards better than that. I mean, we've seen it with other Liberal cabinet ministers, but I just with respect to the NDP, Warren mentions the Jack Layton era. That was at a time when the Conservatives were at their best as well. And we were just celebrating Stephen Harper Week in Ottawa with the unveiling of his portrait. We just recently wrote about an editorial in the Toronto Sun about how Stephen Harper saved conservatism. Part of that's all very true, but there was this very strong orange machine under the NDP, pushing the Liberals out, allowing the Conservatives to emerge. And so let's just say it is someone like Avi Lewis who'll win their leadership, and I suspect it will be. For all the reasons that Warren talked about in terms of his charisma, his ability to communicate, and really push those progressive ideas, is there a space now where the NDP can see a bit of a resurrection, so to speak, in their party's fortunes?
Of course. I mean, traditionally, the NDP hovers around 25%. And could they come back to that? Certainly. There are unique circumstances now that are driving down their vote. Part of it, I think, is that they become so disconnected from reality on so many issues. When Canadians are worried about the cost of living, they're talking about green initiatives that would raise the cost of living. To me, the Achilles heel of the NDP for me has always been to be captured by ideology as opposed to common sense. And to believe, I think many of them believe that they want to be, it's more important to be the conscience of Parliament than the government. One of the interesting comments, and everything you said is true, Nenshi, the NDP leader in Alberta, put out a warning to the federal NDP saying, don't screw up with your Slavic devotion to ideology while we're trying to defeat the Conservatives or the United Conservative Party in Alberta. So that it seems even NDPers know this issue. And so, and look, the two parties aren't directly connected. We all know that, between federal and provincial. But when you have, the provincial opposition leader, who's the NDP in Alberta, warning the federal leadership contenders, like, guys, just, don't screw it up for NDPers across the country. And Avi Lewis, because he's astute, as Warren said, of course not. We would never harm, another NDP party. But to me, that's very telling that even NDPers worry about the NDP.
Exactly. There seems to be another interesting side to the provincial federal leadership gambit, and that has to do, of course, Lauren, with the Ontario Liberal Party. Just a few days ago, Premier of Ontario Doug Ford said to his party faithful at their convention, I'm going to be going for a fourth term. It's going to be about 3 years down the road. One of the things that we've always said is Doug Ford does benefit tremendously from a very lack of pushback from the opposition in this province, which has allowed him 3 very comfortable majority governments. Going for a fourth is not out of the question and could very well be successful. But standing in that way could be the Ontario Liberal Party, who is actually polling higher without a leader than they were when they had a leader. But I'm wondering in that landscape with the Ontario Liberal leadership, and then a name that's emerging, Nate Erskine Smith. I don't know, frankly, who else is really running, but your sort of sense of where that is.
Well, I interviewed the Premier yesterday, and I'll be writing about that in a column for our paper in the coming days. And I asked him that question. I said, well, why are you doing this? And he described to me he gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and he usually doesn't get to bed till midnight. And he's doing what his brother Rob, as you know, you used to work for Rob, would do, work the phones and call people. And he said to me, I'm the only political leader in the world, I think, who gives out his personal phone number. And he does phone people back. And the 3 of us know that. He does do that. And he said, I wake up during the night, a couple times a night, worrying about things. And clearly he's worried about the Trump threat and what that means to Ontario's economy. But he said, I've still got stuff to do, and I'm going to go for a fourth term. When he looks at his opposition, you can understand why. And I say that as a guy, I ran Donaldson McGuinty's war rooms, and we got 3 majorities out of those. And, the Ontario Liberal Party, since McGuinty left, has been just an unmitigated disaster, whether it's under Stephen Del Duca or Bonnie Crombie. So now it looks like they're getting ready to do it again with Nate Erskine Smith, who I know. He was my MP in Beaches East York for years. He belongs to the anti-Israel extremist caucus, the Liberal Party of Canada. He has a total inability to get along with anybody else in caucus. Not all of them are bad, but Nate has an inability to get along with any of them. And he's never come up with an idea of his own. I think he was in Trudeau's cabinet at the end as housing minister for about 5 minutes. So if the Ontario Liberal Party goes in that direction, they're going to regret it. It does, though, create a lot of opportunity. A friend of mine, Summer Nadell, is seeking the nomination in Beaches East York. Very impressive person. She met with Jean Chrétien this week. That means that Erskine Smith is going to go over to Scarborough Southwest, just vacated by Bill Blair, failing upwards, as you put it. And then we get the Marit Stiles is in trouble too, the Ontario NDP leader. Her deputy leader has been appointed as the Liberal candidate in Scarborough Southwest. And the NDP is just in a state, I think it's like a funeral party over there. So, you can understand why Ford would say, well, I think I can win again. And at this stage, at this point, after talking to him, I think he's right.
Well, it's hard to argue with that, Lorrie, because while the opposition parties are twisting in the wind, and one candidate is morphing into another to run for another party, there is a good comfort zone certainly for Doug Ford. But 3 years away from an election, that's an eternity in politics, as we know. And quite frankly, with a new leader for the Ontario Liberal Party, they could chip away at some of that success that Doug Ford is having in certain ridings in the 905, no question, that have traditionally gone liberal, that have only gone conservative in the last few elections because the Liberals have been rudderless. I'm wondering, is there anything that you're seeing in this Ontario Liberal leadership race that is interesting, that could help the party emerge?
At the moment, no. But one of our favorite expressions we all use is, in politics, events matter. Who would have thought 6 months before the federal election last year that there would be a Liberal majority government today, headed by Mark Carney? Who would have? I remember when we talked about it, we would always qualify. If yeah, sorry, yeah, you're absolutely right, too short. But the events matter. So could something happen? Could events that we're not anticipating today absolutely happen? For Doug Ford to win a fourth straight majority government, I mean that's even beyond one of the most successful politicians in Canada, Adrienne, who won three, and probably could have won four if he hadn't been knifed in the back by his own party. So anything can happen. Right now, if you look at the lay of the land, and also remember that the Ontario government has killed the Election Timing Act. It's no longer 4 years. They can go to 5 now if they want to. And so the concern I have, though, and it's with any government. I had a senior federal Liberal years ago when the Conservatives were in disarray, saying to me, this isn't good. This isn't good for them. It isn't good for us. And it isn't good for Canada. Not to have a viable opposition where people viably go, we don't like this guy or this woman, we can take this guy or this woman. And also because he says it makes us lazy and arrogant. And so I think that's what Ford has to be careful of. If you look at the land now, if he wants to run for a fourth consecutive, he might win. But, a week in politics, it's the oldest saying, and it's the truest saying in politics. It's a year.
Well, that's the lay of the land and the political landscape in Canada right now. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go to the TorontoSun.com. You'll find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.